She never saw him coming, just the sudden shove, the scream swallowed by the canyon wind, and the snap that shattered her world. The Apache girl's body hit the rocky slope hard, rolling through dust and stone until everything went black for a heartbeat. When she came to, her leg was bent at a terrible angle, pain blazing through her like fire. She tried to move, but the agony ripped a cry from her chest that echoed through the endless desert. The sun was sinking low, the sky bleeding red above the ridges. She pressed her hands into the dirt, tears streaking her cheeks as she tried to drag herself to the shade of a boulder. Every inch felt like knives cutting into her flesh. She didn't know if the man who pushed her would come back, or if the coyotes would find her first. All she knew was the unbearable pain, and the sound of her own ragged breathing mixing with the whisper of the wind. Somewhere in the distance a horse whinnied. The girl froze. Fear surged through her chest as she clutched a sharp stone with trembling fingers, ready to fight though she could barely lift her arm. The hoofbeats grew louder, steady, heavy, sure. Then a shadow appeared over her, tall and dust-covered, framed by the dying light. A cowboy stood there, hand on his hat, eyes wide as he took in the broken figure at his feet. Her heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to crawl away, to curse him in the language of her people. But the pain was too much. The stone slipped from her hand, clattering uselessly against the rocks. The cowboy stepped closer, his voice low and cautious. "Easy now," he said, the words soft but strained. "You're hurt bad. What happened?" She glared at him through tears. "Go!" she hissed. "Leave me." The man hesitated, glancing at her leg, then at the steep ridge above. "Someone pushed you," he muttered. "Didn't they?" Her silence was answer enough. Dust swirled between them as the wind picked up again, and for a long moment neither moved. Then the cowboy dropped to one knee, setting down his rifle, and whispered, "I ain't leaving you here to die." The cowboy knelt beside her, his shadow falling across her trembling form. "Don't touch me," she rasped, voice cracking with pain. He froze, hands raised in surrender. Her leg was bent grotesquely, blood seeping into the dust. He could see the fear in her eyes, raw, wild, the kind that comes from a lifetime of running. But there was something else there too, something he couldn't name. "You'll bleed out if I don't help," he said quietly. She clenched her jaw, glaring at him as if hatred alone could keep her alive. "Your kind already helped enough," she spat. "You took our land. You killed my father." Her words hit like bullets, but he didn't flinch. He'd heard worse, deserved worse. "I'm sorry," he murmured, looking down. "Can't change what was done, but I can stop you from dying today." He tore off his bandana, dipping it in water from his canteen, and reached for her leg. She screamed as his fingers brushed the torn flesh. The sound cut through him like a blade, but he didn't stop. He wrapped the bandana tight around the wound, trying to steady her trembling body. "Breathe," he urged, his voice soft but commanding. "Look at me, girl. Stay awake." Her breaths came fast and shallow, tears mixed with dust on her cheeks, her lips white from pain. But she did what he said. She looked at him, and for a second she saw something human there. When he finished binding her leg, he sat back, wiping the sweat from his brow. "You're tough," he muttered. "Tougher than most men I've known." She gave a bitter laugh, the sound weak and broken. "Tough don't matter," she said. "Not out here," he nodded. He knew that truth too well. The desert didn't care who you were, white, Apache, sinner, saint. It swallowed everyone the same way. He offered her water. She hesitated, pride warring with pain. Finally she took it, sipping slowly, her hands shaking. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "If my people find you." He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Then I'll take my chances." The wind howled across the ridge, carrying the scent of dust and blood. For the first time that day, she didn't tell him to leave. Night fell heavy and cold across the desert, wrapping them in silence. The cowboy built a small fire between the rocks, its flicker casting soft light on her face. She lay still, fever creeping in, her breathing shallow. He watched her, wondering who she was before this, before the fall, before pain stole her pride. He wanted to ask, but the look in her eyes warned him not to. Some stories weren't meant for strangers. He tore more fabric from his shirt, soaked it and dabbed her forehead. She stirred, whispering something in Apache he couldn't understand. He leaned closer. "You're safe now," he said. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you." Her gaze found his, clouded but sharp. "You don't know that," she murmured. "The one who pushed me, he'll come back." The cowboy's jaw tightened. "Then he'll find me waiting." For a while neither spoke. The desert hummed, with the cries of coyotes and the crack of burning wood. She turned her head toward him. "Why help me?" she asked softly. "Your people hate mine." He stared into the flames, remembering faces, villages burned, families broken by orders he'd once obeyed. "Because I was one of them," he admitted. "And I ain't proud of it." His voice trembled. "Guess I'm just trying to make one thing right before I go." She studied him for a long time, then sighed, the fight in her fading. "What's your name?" she asked. "Eli," he said. "Yours?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Taya." The name lingered in the air, soft as a prayer. He smiled faintly. "Taya, it suits you." She closed her eyes, whispering, "If I die tonight, don't bury me here. My people won't find me." His heart twisted at her words. "You ain't dying," he said firmly. "Not while I'm here." Hours passed. Eli kept the fire alive, feeding it bits of brush, his eyes never leaving her face. She looked so fragile, yet there was something unbreakable in her spirit. He knew he'd risk everything to get her to safety, even if it meant crossing into Apache territory by dawn. As the stars burned cold above, Eli swore under his breath, "I'll get you home, girl, no matter what comes." Dawn bled across the desert in streaks of gold and rose, painting the ridge behind them like a wound slowly healing. Eli stirred the ashes of the dying fire, then looked at Taya. Her face was pale, her lips dry, but she was alive. He poured the last of his water into her mouth, his rough hands steady despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "We ride now," he whispered. "Sun'll burn us both if we stay." She nodded faintly, trusting him now without words. He lifted her gently into his arms, her small frame trembling against his chest. Each step to the horse was slow, deliberate, as if the earth itself demanded silence. He mounted with care, settling her before him, her head resting against his shoulder. The horse snorted, uneasy under the doubled weight, but Eli pressed his heel softly and it obeyed, carrying them toward the horizon. The world felt vast and empty, yet strangely new. The wind brushed through her tangled hair as she spoke weakly. "You don't have to do this. Eli, they'll kill you if they see you with me." He looked down at her, the corners of his mouth tightening. "Maybe," he said, "but some things are worth dying for." His words weren't brave. They were tired, honest, heavy with the kind of guilt that never fades. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "You saved me first." By midday, the desert shimmered like glass. Eli's vision blurred, but he kept going. He knew a stream lay ahead, and beyond it, an old mission house where a doctor sometimes came. When they reached it, he slid off the saddle, his legs buckling. "Stay with me, Taya," he murmured. She blinked slowly, her hand gripping his shirt weakly, as if anchoring him to her fading strength. As he carried her through the doorway, a woman gasped, a nun, her white habit streaked with dust. "Dear God," she whispered. Eli laid Taya on a cot, his hands trembling. "She fell," he said hoarsely. "She needs help." The nun nodded, rushing to fetch water and bandages. Eli stepped back, sweat and blood streaking his face, watching as life began to return to Taya's eyes. For the first time she smiled. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying the scent of dust and rain. Eli turned his gaze toward the ridge far beyond, where it had all begun. The desert had taken much from him, but in saving her, he'd found something he didn't know he'd lost, a reason to keep going. He tipped his hat against the morning sun and whispered, "You're safe now, girl. You're home."